Ms. Kim from California.
Thank you, Chairman, and I want to thank Ranking Member Mix for holding today's hearing. Before I begin, I also want to convey my, speedy recovery to our colleague, Congressman Joe Wilson, and we look forward to having him back joining us. And thank you, Undersecretary Bass, for joining us at our hearing today. The People's Republic of China and PRC private sector companies conduct destructive and oftentimes illegal mining, drilling, logging, and fishing in Africa while disregarding environmental and public health, as you know. So I introduced the Stopping PRC Environmental Exploitation and Degradation Act, or SPEED Act, to hold the PRC accountable for its deliberate environmental degradation and harm African communities. But despite these coercive and exploitative nature of these investments, PRC investment in Africa is growing. So how is the State Department working to inform African governments that the PRC's approach to engagement on the continent is transactional and unsustainable?
So thank you, Congresswoman, for completely agree with you about the predatory nature of so much of the PRC's activities on the continent. We are approaching this in a range of ways, and to Ranking Member Meek's observations earlier, right? We're trying to ensure that we are not making the continent about this competition between the United States and China. Our policy is about Africa, and it's about helping Africans develop a better future for themselves in partnership with support, but informed and guided by choices they are making. And so we, in the process of trying to offer a better offer, point out the many ways in which.
So what ways do you think we're doing? Do you think we're doing enough currently to better partner for, like African nations to counter PRC's growing influence? How are we doing it? Can you give some specific examples?
Sure. I don't think we're doing enough in that we're dealing with an enormous flood of disinformation and misinformation from the PRC in Russia. So supporting our efforts through the Global Engagement Center and other activities we have in the department and in the executive branch to deal with misinformation is a critical piece of this. Second, ongoing support for our wider efforts to talk about the nature of partnerships with the U.S. private sector based on the rule of law, based on respect for contracts, and informing whether it's governments, whether it's chambers of commerce, about the perils of some of these quote unquote investments from the PRC, I think is going to continue to be a really important part of our efforts.
Thank you. As you correctly pointed out, we were concerned about China's model that promotes like propaganda, disinformation, and censorship activities in Africa. So glad to hear that you're addressing those issues, because CCC, as you know, has a very active campaign to export its digital authoritarian model and very, very intrusive surveillance technologies to Africa. That really undermines our civil societies and human rights issues. So we'd like to see more active engagement in that regard. So thank you for addressing that. The CCP uses political training as a strategic tool to export its authoritarian governance style throughout Africa. The CCP funds political schools in Tanzania, Ethiopia, and South Africa, among others, which emphasize Chinese governance and economic models. I believe they also host African military and political leaders regularly to cement their influence. So how is the State Department seeking to counter CCP's brazen attempts to coerce the next generation of African leaders?
We continue to support a wide range of educational opportunities. USAID invests heavily in basic primary education, which is essential in so many countries on the continent. Our exchange programs that bring a large number of students to the States for higher education, or in some cases for training as university professors, remains the gold standard on the continent. And we have constant demand, well exceeding our supply, based on the funding available to us for our exchange program. So, the best way we're trying to deal with this is to target those places where we're seeing the greatest pernicious effect, but also to ensure that the CCP, the PRC, is not getting traction in other countries to the same degree.
Thank you. My time's up, so I yield back.